When I start these video concepts, I'm trying to think of a title, and I try to make it something that is close to what I think about the Pokemon. And Heracross, I wanted to think of something else, but really this is the only thing I can think about it. Is it feels like you're gambling when you use it. Hello everyone, this is Tetrafolium. I'm here to talk about Heracross, who is a little bit similar to some of the other Pokemon I've talked to in the past, particularly like Scizor in the last video, but I hope that I can give a little bit of a different spin and explain why Heracross is maybe useful in other ways as compared to those other Pokemon. So we'll start as always. Oh, not by lowering the volume of my music, but by checking out the viability rankings. So this is one of those Pokemon that I don't really have to do much digging for. It is an OU ranked Pokemon. It is considered by most to be worthy of its OU status. Um, it is the highest ranked fighting type, and it's the second highest ranked bug type. Although, granted, I'm not a big fan of Fortress. I would probably stick Fortress lower. Um, maybe just below Metacham. I think it's better than Cloyster. But in any case, Heracross is well respected as per this tier list here. Um, we'll go into some of the reasons why that might be the case. So, Heracross being a fighting type is pretty big for its identity. There are a lot of common Pokemon in this format that are weak to fighting, primarily Tyranitar, Snorlax, and Blissey. There's also Magneton. Um, and then, of course, a bevy of other not quite OU ranked Pokemon that are weak to fighting. But while these are very high value targets, fighting types have some things holding them back. Like, for example, all these flying types that have a rock weakness, and these mostly psychic types here that have bug/ghost weakness. For the rock weak Pokemon, sometimes our fighting types will run Rock Slide as a coverage move. Particularly Charizard and Moltres are quite scared of Rock Slides. They're ×4 weak to it. And then for our psychic friends here, we will sometimes run HP Bug or Ghost to hit them. Bug is a little more common because it's ×4 super effective on the bulkiest of these, which is Celebi. Although I should note that Metacham is not hit for super effective with Bug, only with Ghost. And Evil Gengar in the corner over there is similarly weak to Ghost, but quad resist Bug, I believe. So how do the good fighters of this generation do to handle those checks? You'll see Rock Slide is right there as one of the prominent ones. And yeah, let's see which ones get it. Oh, what is that? I'm missing one in the corner that showed up there. No, we don't have to worry about that guy. He, despite being UEBL ranked, I find Machamp to be quite weak. Maybe I just have not found the set that I need for it. Like that Encore Focus Punch set looks kind of interesting, but it seems like so hard to use for not a lot of reward compared to like just Metacham or Heracross, much stronger in the general case. But yeah, we have Rock Slide on all but Breloom. Earthquake. Earthquake is pretty good at hitting steel types. I know you're thinking to yourself, well, fighting is good at hitting steel types, but every OU ranked fighting type, or excuse me, every OU ranked steel type except for Magneton has a dual type that resists fighting. Bug in the case of Fortress, Flying in the case of Skarmory, and then Psychic in the case of Jirachi and Metagross. So Earthquake is sometimes useful to guarantee thresholds for Pokemon that can't quite get them with their fighting type moves. I don't generally see them as clicks all that often. Maybe like a Choice Banded Hariyama could find use in it, but generally you kind of accept that you don't have a super effective move into the steel types. Unless you're Blaziken, then you can just use Fire Blast, which is I think equally as good coverage, if not better than Earthquake. Shadow Ball, the only Pokemon that gets it is Medicham, which is something I pointed out in my Medicham video, if you would like to go watch and see more of Medicham's particulars. But Heracross is the only one that gets Mega Horn, which makes it clearly the best against Celebi. Well, I guess maybe Medicham has an argument because it's not weak to Psychic, but Shadow Ball does not generally kill Celebi, and Mega Horn always, on any Heracross that's worth a damn, it will kill Celebi. And then I note Sword Stance here. Every single one of these Pokemon gets Bulk Up, which is also a move that will boost your attack, but Sword Stance gives you a +2 boost to make you even more threatening in the short term, and also kind of in the long term, because who has time to click 6 bulk ups? Sword Stance is really good at helping some of these Pokemon break through neutrals or resists that they otherwise don't have the coverage for. Think about like Suicune, for example, who's really bulky and can shrug off a lot of neutral hits. Well, if you're Sword Dancing in front of the Suicune, then you're threatening a 2-hit KO with pretty much all of these Pokemon. Blaziken, I'm not exactly sure. I would hope so, but definitely Breloom and Heracross with their super duper strong stabs and Focus Punch and Mega Horn. Now let's take a look at the stat comparison between some of these fighting types, because you might be thinking to yourself, well, sure, Mega Horn seems like a cool move and all, but if Heracross doesn't have the stats to stack up, then why would I use it? Alright, Machamp, that's enough. I do not like you, so go away. Here's the base stat totals, or I should just say the base stats of each of these Pokemon. Yeah, Medicham looks significantly lower, but you got to remember, with Medicham, we're not just talking about raw stats, we're going to talk about the ability as well. Although, Medicham's not the only Pokemon that has an ability that can help it boost. Before we get too far into that, Breloom is actually the strongest raw. If abilities were not accounted for, so that kind of explains why you would want to use Breloom. Of course, Spore is another big reason, but Blaziken, this kind of surprised me, has the same attack stat as Hariyama, which is only 5 base stat points less than Heracross. I've got it in my mind that Blaziken was not quite as good a mixed attacker as it actually is, but the 120 physical attack, 110 special attack is just like, that's phenomenal. It's better, even better than Swampert's attacking stats, which is kind of crazy. Definitely not as good defensively though. With the ability modifiers, note that Medicham is just at neutral with like no crazy conditions involved. Medicham is the strongest out of these 5, but both Hariyama and Heracross get Guts, and if that is activated, it's effectively a 1.5 times boost to your attack stat. I think technically it boosts the power of your physical moves rather than your attack stat, but the calculations are pretty much the same. So that's good. In the case of Hariyama, you might have Swarm instead, which will give you a 1.5 times boost to all your Bug-type moves, but considering that basically Mega Horn is like the move that we're going to be clicking the most anyway, it is effectively a 1.5 times boost. Blaziken and Breloom sadly do not get abilities that boost their physical attack. Blaziken does get Blaze, which is effectively, it's like Swarm for fire types, but all fire type moves are special, so that doesn't really help us out with our physical stats. Although like I said, Breloom has a 110 special attack stat, which is really good, especially for something with Stab, Fire Blast. So you should definitely give it a try as a special attacker, and see how much a Blaze Boosted Fire Blast can do for you. I think it's actually technically stronger than Charizard's, if I'm not mistaken. And then Breloom, unfortunately, it has Effect Spore as its ability, which is like situationally useful. It's kind of cheesy. I don't see it come up very often, but when it does, it can be really annoying. As for base speed, Heracross's claim to fame is the fastest fighting type. Um, I, be- I believe it might just be the fastest fighting type in the entire game, regardless of OU ranking or not. But let me check that real quick. Okay, no, that's not true. There's Primeape and Hitmonlee, but like Primeape is never going to be seen, and Hitmonlee is very limited in what it can do, so it is generally not seen. And then Heracross would be the third after that. So good thing we checked, not spreading misinformation here. Blaziken and Medicham are not too far behind Heracross. The Notably, all of them are faster than a modest Moltres at max speed, so that's kind of cool. Moltres is a Pokemon that otherwise would give each of them a lot of trouble if they are not able to get their Rock Slide off on it. But being faster than a modest Moltres can help you out a little bit. Breloom and Hariyama sadly are not, and Hariyama is actually really slow. I would probably recommend running like a minimal amount of speed on it, maybe just enough to speed creep a no investment Blissey. Otherwise, I don't think there's much reason to run a lot of speed on Hariyama. But in any case, yes, Heracross is the fastest, which is what we should take out of this. It's also like the second or third strongest. If you're Guts boosted, you are the strongest. In any case, I think it stacks up really well, and I could see why it is considered the highest ranked fighting type, even though sometimes I feel like Medicham is better. But let's not get too far into our Medicham slander here. Megahorn is a really powerful move. This is 252 Adamant Heracross, so this is like the max attack you could be, but we're not factoring in a Guts boost, a Swarm boost, or Choice Banded, or any sort of attack boost from Swords Dance. None of that. So keep in mind that you could get stronger than this with a little bit of investment or a little bit of committing your item. Against a Choice Banded Metagross, which commonly is going to run 128 HP, you are guaranteed to 2-hit KO with Megahorn. Against a 248 HP Tyranitar, so that is some of the DD sets, sometimes the special sets, and the special set is the one to watch out for because Fire Blast is the most damage that T-Tar is going to do to you, unless it's running HP Flying, but that's a little strange. You're almost going to OHKO it, which is really good. Like with a Spike Layer, that's guaranteed. It's still just like really highly in your favor. It's kind of a reason why Heracross can sometimes afford to not run a fighting type move. Because it has an even stronger stab to against things generally that can hit Tyranitar and usually kill it. So that's pretty good. I made up this set for Claydol, pretending like there was a max defense, max HP Claydol kicking around. I don't think there is. It's still has a few rolls to kill that in one shot, which is incredible. So as you can imagine, the standard Claydol, which is running like 252 HP and maybe a modicum of defense, is certainly going to die. And then there's Suicune at the bottom, who is just completely impossible to kill with physical moves. I guess that's not entirely true. Medicham Focus Punch does a lot, but I mean, Heracross Focus Punch would do close. It'd be in striking distance, but I think I prefer Megahorn because I'm not beholden to what my opponent is going to do to hit my Megahorn. Although Megahorn has its problems, which I think that's the next slide here. We're slower than base 100s with a neutral nature. Heracross hits 295 at its fastest, and the neutral nature base 100s hit 299, so they're 4 points faster. So, and they're often incentivized to run all the way up to 299 because they want to speed tie other base 100s that are sitting with the neutral nature. And outspeed like the Salamence sets that run a little slower, the Celebi sets that run a little slower. Yeah. Now, some of them will just be satisfied with outspeeding a Modest Moltres or a Smeargle or something. So they might be in the 270 to 280-ish range, but that's not super duper common, and that's still faster than the Adamant Heracross. It's pretty much the slowest that most of the offensive sets of the base 100s are gonna go. In any case, there are some other Pokemon that have, given a speed boosting nature, a plus speed nature, they would also outspeed Heracross all the time, like Houndoom, Jinx, and Arcanine, which are all base 95 speed. Moltres is base 90 speed. There are a handful of other Pokemon in between there, but they're not even close to meta relevant, so I didn't bother to include them. So sorry, all the Ponyta enjoyers. It's just not cutting it. So with that, you could run a sub-Salax set. If you saw my Scizor video earlier this week, you would have seen a little bit of a discussion on these berries that boost your stats at low HP. Salac is one of them. It boosts your speed by 1 stage. So when you get down to that, you will be over 400 speed, which is faster than pretty much everything in the metagame. Yeah, there's Electrode and Ninjask, but come on, those Ninjask, you are already having problems with it because it's a flying type, and you also don't have accurate moves usually to hit it, so especially not with this set if you're going to run Rock Slide. And Electrode, come on, that just... I have actually run into it since saying, I believe in one of my videos, that Electrode is not real. But it still wasn't good. It got completely 1v1 by a Magneton, which is really sad for a non-steel type. In any case, I think that this is a potential set that you could do. I kind of prefer Scizor for this type of thing because Scizor does not require weather clearing. This sort of set is designed with a 30 HP IV, so that it will have a multiple of 4. So 300 HP is exactly what it will get to. That means you can click sub 3 times and get down to 25%, which will activate the Salac Berry. So it gives you the most health possible. You can't, with Heracross, afford to go to 1 HP, even though it does get reversal, and it is a really strong reversal user if you can pull it off. But, Sand is such a nuisance for it that it's very rare and very difficult. In any case, this set would be a little bit resilient to Sand because it should live the Sand chip before the Salac Berry procs, which gives you just a handful of turns to click Swarm boosted Megahorns. Uncontested, nothing's faster than that. The problem that I've kind of been alluding to with Megahorn is it is only 85% accurate. So it's kind of like you're forced to click Fire Blast every turn. Now, Megahorn has some advantages over Fire Blast in that it mostly in its PP. It's got 16 PP instead of 8, so I don't mind clicking it into something like Suicune or Zapdos and losing double the PP because I've got double the clicks with it, which is quite nice. The other thing is that a lot of the things that Heracross would like to hit on switch in or in a trade, you're going to need to use Rock Slide, and Rock Slide's only 90% accurate, so you may find yourself in a situation where you call a switch to Moltres, or you're up against a modest Moltres, and you go for Rock Slide, and you would get the kill certainly if you would hit it, and then you miss, and then Flamethrower destroys you back. Many such cases will this happen because Heracross loves to clean up Pokemon that are weakened or that die to a super effective hit. Let's talk, I guess, about why I want to call this the gambling Pokemon is these accuracy checks. They make it feel like you're gambling the game away a little bit. So there's Heracross. They're very excited to go gambling. Whoa, Machamp, what did I say? you gotta go. All right. So here's a little matchup spread. It's back again for this video because we're ranking a Pokemon that sort of exists, not a Pokemon that like only exists kind of in the figment of our imagination. Sorry, Scizor enjoyers. I know that some of you have come on to comment and say how much you love Scizor in ADV, and I'm glad that I was able to reintroduce you to it or just highlight one of your favorite Pokemon. That it was kind of cool to see all those comments there, but in any case, we're here to talk about Heracross before I get too far off topic again. Those top 5 Pokemon are just completely one-shot by a fighting type move or Megahorn. There are definitely Pokemon that get one-shot by Rock Slide as well, but they happen to be faster than Heracross, so I can't rightly say that Heracross like strictly 1v1s them. In some cases, Heracross is favored, like Breloom. You are usually threatening a KO with Megahorn. It depends on how much HP investment they want to put in. And Breloom might be able to spore you and get away, but that is predicated on you didn't sleep sack something else, or Heracross doesn't have some way to deal with that, which we may talk about in a moment. Jolteon is it's faster than Heracross, and it's threatening a 2 or 3 hit KO depending on your defensive investment. But it's pretty frail and it's scared to get hit by a Megahorn back. But it can be annoying. And that's kind of the case for a lot of these Pokemon that are in the Heracross favored, is that Heracross is generally going to 2-hit or threaten a 1-hit KO on them. But if Heracross doesn't get it, they have some sort of rebuttal back, or they can do big damage back. Like take Snorlax for example. If Snorlax lives a Brick Break, it can explode. But if Heracross catches it on switch in, does the damage that it needs to, then Snorlax is completely screwed, basically. You have some of these defensive Pokemon in the trade tier, like Cloyster, Fortress, Suicune, Swampert, who all can take 1 or 2 Megahorns, or Brick Breaks, or whatever. But they're generally not threatening Heracross back with enough damage. Like, Heracross is outpacing them. Some of the other Pokemon are Pokemon that can beat Heracross in the right circumstances, but they have to be kind of specific. Like Flygon, for example, only wins if it has Gust in its moveset, or HP Flying, but usually it's going to run HP Bug. Um, so yeah, and then the Revenge Killers are obviously Pokemon that are faster and threatening Flygon with super effective damage. Uh, in the case of our bookends, Aerodactyl and Salamence, they have HP Flying, um, and they're not gonna die to a Rock Slide. Uh, Gyarados could maybe be here, but Heracross is faster, so Heracross can Skamaz the Gyarados a little more, and also Gyarados is not always incentivized to run HP Flying. Sometimes it wants to run HP Rock, and that's not going to get through the Heracross. Um, whereas these guys, I guess technically Aerodactyl could run HP Bug as well, and Heracross would not be too scared of it, but it's still going to get 2-hit KO'd by Double Edge and generally, and Heracross is not generally going to get the OHKO back with Rock Slide. Then we have our fire types, sort of on the what is it? The outside linemen are called the tackles, and then the guards in the middle, or do I have that mixed up? Okay. If you know football, you probably know what I mean, but Charizard, Moltres, their Fire Blast is pretty scary for Heracross, but they're also scared to switch into a Rock Slide. And then Jirachi, if it has Psychic, it's pretty threatening to Heracross, although it's not always the best at switching in because it takes a lot of damage from Megahorn. And then Heracross's hardest matchup is probably Skarmory. You don't, because it quad resists Megahorn, which is generally your best hit, you have to rely on fighting type moves to get through it. And Focus Punch certainly does a lot, but Brick Break is kind of bouncing off of the Skarmory. And especially if you're relying on Focus Punch, Skarmory could always have Drill Peck, and Drill Peck is usually going to one-shot the Heracross, even with no investment, which is kind of a feels bad moment for Heracross. But that kind of does it. I think Heracross actually matches up pretty well into a lot of mons that are on the more difficult side, like having a favorable matchup against Milotic, and then a pretty good matchup into the other bulky waters is not something that you generally see outside of like an electric type with HP Grass. So that can be really nice for a team that is a little bit weak to the bulky waters. Now here are the standard Heracross sets. This standard one is pretty nice and not too difficult to use. You kind of just come in and click what's in front of you, and that'll generally work out pretty well. You might have to make 1 or 2 Rock Slide plays against like a Moltres team or a Charizard team, but generally you just come in with the Heracross when you outspeed and click what's in front of you, and you'll get a lot of damage with this set. Adamant or Jolly is kind of like a need-dependent thing. If you're struggling against, like if you lead Heracross and you're struggling against Smeargle leads, you might want to do Jolly. If you don't have as good a Moltres switch-ins as you might want, you may want to go Jolly as well to give yourself a chance. Although I wouldn't bank on that because Moltres is also really heavily incentivized to run Timid. So, yeah, Adamant is really nice when you can afford it. So if you can team build to allow your Heracross to be Adamant, that would be preferable. There's Choice Band. Heracross is definitely one of the scarier Choice Banders. A lot of Choice Banders are locking into moves that are resisted by really dangerous Pokemon like Metagross. Kind of true on both ends of that Metagross will run the Choice Band, and Metagross is the mon that switches into a lot of the Choice Banded hits. But Megahorn Choice Band is so strong. It completely torches a lot of would-be switch-ins. And then things like Skarmory don't want to switch into a Choice Band boosted Focus Punch. Gengar's not safe because Rock Slide and HP Ghost are so strong. Rock Slide can 2-hit KO, potentially OHKO offensive, maybe? Actually, probably not. HP Ghost is probably necessary to get the OHKO on Gengar. But yeah, these are both pretty good sets, and I generally would advise you use them if you're going to use a Heracross set. The Sub Salac is fine as well if you have the team support for it, but you're probably going to need Weather Clear to get the full effects of it. But I'm here to show you something a little different, how we say. So this is a build that I call the slot machine. I can't take full credit for this. I think I first saw a set like this in a forum for sample teams. I don't know if it had the exact EV spread that I came up with here, but I think it had probably the same 4 moves and the same sort of core premise. So this is Heracross with Megahorn and Rock Slide with no fighting move. Generally, I don't think you miss the fighting move that often. Yeah, it's not great to not have it into Skarmory or like on the rare occasion that you see Registeel, but I think that with like good other mons on your team, you can sort of help yourself deal with that. In particular with Skarmory, you could slap Magneton on to help yourself with Heracross. Now, I don't think that Magneton is a fix-all problem for teams that are weak to Skarmory, but like for like 1 or 2 Pokemon on your team that are weak to Skarmory, then Magneton's support is pretty appreciated. So, spoiler, we're probably going to be running a Magneton team here. With this attack investment, we will OHKO low investment Tyrannitars with our Megahorn unboosted. So that would be things like the fast DD Tyranitar or like the faster Choice Band variants. The bulky DD sets we're not quite getting an OHKO on, or at least not a guaranteed one. We're still going to OHKO Moltres and Charizard with Rock Slide. And we're doing exactly 50% minimum to a utility lax. That matters because I'm planning to run this Heracross on a Sandless team. So if my opponent is also running a Sandless team, then we're getting just enough damage that we can kill the Snorlax on the next hit. Now, if we low roll it both times, then the leftovers recovery in the middle of the Megahorns will be enough to offset our damage, but generally we're going to kill the Lax. And if my opponent has Sand, then that utility Lax is dead, guaranteed. So that's quite nice. We're still going to 3-hit KO Bolt Suicune with Megahorn. Now, hitting 3 Megahorns in a row is a taller task than you would maybe think, but I think that the 3-hit KO option onto Suicune is really nice. We don't have to mess around with Rock Slide flinches necessarily. We're favored to one-shot a Blissey with a Sleep Talk boosted Megahorn. Similarly with offensive Zapdos and Rock Slide. And then the bulk is favored to live 252 special attack Thunderbolts from Zapdos and 2 Body Slams from Utility Lax. They do have rolls to kill if they high roll both, but we are usually going to live them. Now you might be a little curious about what I just said there with this Sleep Talk boosted Megahorn. I think our next slide has a little bit about this. It doesn't exactly say why I care about rest and sleep talk on Heracross. Rest is obviously nice because it can get us back to full HP, and Heracross has a pretty good. Let's go back to it actually. The HP and Spadef are both pretty good. I mean, I talked about how Medicham weirdly lives a lot of hits, and Heracross is, I think, just straight up better defensively than Medicham across the board. I'm not sure. Maybe they're tied on defense, but HP and special defense especially are better, I think. Pretty sure. I think Metacham's in 60 HP. Whatever. You'll fact check me if you care enough. Um, this is enough to live a lot of like weaker hits, like unboosted Suicune Surfs, or a Claydol Earthquake, or like Tyranitar Brick Break, things that we resist. So we can survive a lot of little hits like that. Resting will get us back up to full HP, so we can continue to do that. But Sleep Talk will randomly roll one of our other 3 moves. If those moves happen to be Mega Horn or Rock Slide, because of the Guts ability, we actually will get a boost in damage there. So 1.5 times boost. So it's like having a choice band added onto our damage. It's a little bit risky, and this is why I call it the slot machine, because you're only giving yourself a 2 out of 3 chance to even hit, and you don't get to choose whether you're going to get Mega Horn or Rock Slide. But I'll explain how sometimes that can kind of work in your favor, a little counterintuitively. But in any case, Sleep Talk mechanics in Gen 3, this is a little bit confusing. It really confused me the first time I used a Sleep Talk Pokemon, but it's not as bad as you might think. So, per Bulbapedia, if Sleep Talk or Snore is used at least once consecutively in the turns right before switching out, the Pokemon will sleep for the same amount of turns as were remaining prior to the usage of those 2 moves when switched back in. Okay, that's a word salad right there. What that basically means is if you use Sleep Talk and then switch out, that burned turn of sleep doesn't count. And if you chain your Sleep Talks together, like if I use Rest and I know I'm going to be asleep for 2 turns, and I click Sleep Talk and then switch out, both of those Sleep Talks are null and void. If you use Sleep Talk and then burn a turn of Rest thereafter without clicking Sleep Talk, that second turn is actually burned. That will count towards your sleep timer if you would. But no, actually, the Sleep Talk would also count towards that if you use Sleep Talk first. If you use it second, only 1 turn counts as being burned. It's a little bit complicated, but what that means is if we have a situation where we want the Heracross to stay asleep so that it can keep its boost, we can opt to switch. There are some teams that are really passive and going to spam Protect that are going to just wait out our Heracross to wake up so that it can do something nasty while it's guaranteed to live. And we can say no and just stay asleep for that. It's not generally advised, I would say, but it does help us out in the cases where we're forced to switch because maybe we kill something and then the revenge is threatening to kill us. But we can switch out, and then when we come back in, yeah, we're not going to wake up, but we still have our boosted damage moves, which is really cool. So, the team structure for this. This is a team that is pretty famous. A lot of people have played with this team. A lot of people know it. It's called Blue Offense. Why is it called Blue Offense? Well, just look at the color of all the Pokemon. They're all blue. Well, Magneton's kind of gray, but it has a little bit of blue on its magnet, so kind of counts. The typical idea with Blue Offense is that you will use Magneton to clear the weather, meaning that Magneton is going to use Rain Dance usually. kind of has some synergy with the Suicune. To get rid of Sandstorm after the Tyranitar has died. Now, I don't particularly like this strategy. One, because Subsalic Heracross is kind of subject to the same problems as Scizor, where it can't run Swords Dance and all the coverage moves that it needs, so it has to pick and choose. It's not always great, but it's almost even worse than Scizor in a sense that because you're kind of committing to Mega Horn, and while Swarm boosted Mega Horn, especially with like a +2, is killing pretty much everything in the tier, you might miss it, and that could be devastating for your sweep. It also means that Pokemon that resist both Bug and Fighting, which is a lot rarer than you would think, but take for example Gengar, might be able to stop the Heracross sweep anyway. For this team, it's because I'm not using my slot machine set, or it's not really, I don't know if I can claim it, but I'm christening it, I'm coining it as the slot machine. I don't really care about clearing the weather for that Heracross set. I just want to kill Skarmory, so I'm gonna bring Magneton anyway, and then the rest of the team just fills out as a blue offense. It makes sense. I believe the idea with blue offense is that you're gonna run mixed Salamence a lot of the time, but I decided to run a physical DD Salamence, and coupled with physical Metagross and Snorlax, we're trying to overwhelm the switch-ins for Heracross, and well, also for each other. You know, Suicune's really good at taking on one physical Pokemon one-on-one, but like 2 or 3 on a team, that can be really overwhelming for Suicune. Same with Pokemon like Milotic and Swampert. So that's kind of it. I've got a bold Suicune to be a late game sweeper. Also, as a switch in because this team is, well, being an offense team, is generally does not have the best switch-ins for certain threats, and Suicune at least helps me out against some of the physical threats, which is kind of nice. It synergizes pretty well with Salamence and its Intimidate, so I just think that Suicune was good for this team, or the bold Suicune was good for this team, although you can run the Hydro offensive Suicune if you would like. Yeah, that's that. Let's go into the scene here and get some different music. I just love like the MIDI like horns in the Gen 3 soundtrack, especially in Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald. In fact, I think I'm going to turn this up just a little bit. Hope that wasn't too scary for everybody who was not paying attention, but now you're awake. Alright, so I've got a bunch of replays. This is an offense team. It's going to be decently fast-paced, so let's see how it goes. So lead Metagross. Lead Metagross is just really strong into a lot of leads. I go for a Toxic on the Zapdos. Skarmory comes in. I'm not too broken up about it, though, because I can go to Magneton and immediately remove it. Dugtrio comes in to trap me, but I can go to Salamence, and I'm threatening damage on whatever I want, basically. I go for Rock Slide, trying to catch Zapdos, but Suicune comes in and dodges it. This is my time to go to Snorlax. This is the special wall of my team. I go for Body Slam and get the Para right away, which is really nice on a Roar turn. And now I'm into Heracross. Heracross does a decent amount to Suicune, but not quite enough. This is a bold Suicune, I believe. I go for one Mega Horn. Don't quite get the kill, and I go for Rest, predicting a switch to Zapdos or something else. Probably not Dugtrio, though. so that I can have a stronger Mega Horn. And if the Suicune stays in, I get all my HP back. I'll take it back to the chip that I was at, but I'm threatening a kill with Mega Horn. So my opponent stays in and T-bolts me. I go for Sleep Talk and I roll Rock Slide, which is really good. I think an underrated part of this set is that it is really uncommon, so a lot of people are not really expecting it. People will see the Heracross go for rest and assume that there's like something in the back with aromatherapy, or that like I'm just goofy. And well, this set is kind of goofy. BKC would definitely disapprove of this level of relying on RNG, but I'm not BKC, so I will choose to lose some of my games to bad luck. Heracross just rolls Mega Horn. It didn't matter which attacking move, I just needed to roll an attacking move, and then Dugtrio comes in to kill me off with Aerial Ace. Heracross is the reason why Dugtrio runs Aerial Ace. I mean, Breloom as well, but like it was mostly to deal with Heracross originally. But this sets up for my Suicune to have a really, really good time against this team. I get Thunder Waved, and the Blissey goes for Heal Bell to heal the Suicune. I'm just going to stay in. And I think I'm going to go in fast mode here, because we've already gotten through the Heracross. It's kind of just letting the Suicune and my two Boomers, and I guess Salamence, sweep up this game. My opponent does similar to what I've done in previous videos and goes for the Thunder Wave, Seismic Toss, chip down on the Suicune, and rest. Instead of staying in to burn the sleep turn, I decide to go immediately to Snorlax to try to catch the opposing Suicune coming in to Roar, but my opponent instead goes to Fortress. I don't like Snorlax's matchup there, so I'm going to go to Metagross. I'm going to punch the Fortress. My opponent is going to Calm Mind up with their Suicune. I'm gonna go for some Earthquakes to threaten the kill. I don't get it, so I'm gonna Meteor Mash, trying to get an attack raise. But now I know that my opponent is going to stay in with the Suicune. Like, burning one turn of sleep against the Metagross, you were already risking Explosion. If you were gonna switch, you would have switched already. So in this case, I'm just gonna decide to take the Suicune, so that my Suicune in the end game is looking really dangerous. Against this Blissey, just Body Slam. We're trading paras here, which is kind of nice. Fortress comes in, I Body Slam that. Don't get the para. My opponent will get the third layer to stop my Suicune, and then explode. My opponent opts to go to Blissey instead of Dugtrio, which makes sense. Either would have killed, and Blissey is better against Salamence coming in. But I'm just going to stay in. My opponent, I guess, predicts me to switch to Salamence. I'm not going to do that, because unless I get parried out of my boxers or something, Suicune is easily going to beat the Blissey one-on-one. I go for rest. Dugtrio does not have the sauce to take me out here. It's got a crit Earthquake. It does not. I can just go for Surfs, and then we'll just go on Hyper Fast mode, because this is just Suicune cleaning up. My opponent's going to have to switch into Dugtrio on a turn that I'm going for rest. Which is why I try to do it early, whenever possible. My opponent actually gets in kind of on the turn that it was needed, but doesn't get the rolls that were needed or a crit, and yeah, Suicune is just going to get all the way there. Yeah, my opponent will forfeit. I would probably forfeit in that position as well. Alright, next game. Hopefully we'll get to see Heracross do a little more. Lead Gyarados is extremely strange. I just go for a Toxic on it. And then I switch to Salamence on the predicted Earthquake there, but I also am in on a Blissey, and Blissey goes for Thunder Wave. So I go to Heracross to catch the Thunder Wave. I go for Rock Slide, trying to catch Gyarados switching in. I don't get it, but I get the Mega Horn, and that does a lot of damage. I probably should have just Mega Horn first if I knew it was going to do that much damage, but I needed to threaten the Blissey out. Now I can just go to Snorlax, who will take an HP flying pretty well, and I can Body Slam Fish for the para. Basically, unless I know my opponent has Gengar on their team, I'm just going to click Body Slam with Snorlax on predicted switches because I'd rather just get the para. So I go to Magneton, get the yellow color on the Snorlax. It has no item, rests, and reveals to be Chesto Berry, which is insane. I get a lucky para there, but I have T-Bolt. My opponent goes for a return. Now, the thing that's interesting to me is if the Snorlax had Earthquake, it almost certainly would have went for it because return's not killing Magneton. Why would you want to take more Thunderbolt chip? So this is important to note for when I kill, I sack my Magneton to the Snorlax, I can go to Metagross, and return is the best move that it has to hit me. So my opponent is going to Curse, hoping that I miss Meteor Mash, I guess, but I don't, and it's in Earthquake range, so that's quite nice for me. Here comes the Gyarados. I'm not going to let my guy get Earthquaked, and I'm not going to let him Dragon Dance up, so I go to Intimidate Salamence. I know from earlier that it was HP Flying, so I'm not scared of HP Rock. I'll go for Rock Slide and kill the Gyarados. And now it's Suicune versus Suicune. I'm just going to Roar. And Ludicolo is revealed. 3 water types on one team. That's pretty unconventional. I was thinking maybe the last might be Kingdra. This is like a weird rain team. But anyway, Ludicolo is not really threatening much damage on Heracross. It does have Fire Punch as an option, but it doesn't often run it. So I just go for Mega Horn, which gets the 2-hit KO on Suicune. And then I can rest up here. I could have went for Sleep Talk and tried to roll a Mega Horn to kill this Ludicolo in one shot, but I was afraid that whatever the last was might be able to handle Heracross if I don't get the right move into it. So I decide to go to Snorlax to play it safe. I'll go for a Body Slam on this Ludicolo, fishing for a para, and I know that I'll live a Surf. I don't get it, but the Surf is not even 2-hit KOing me, and my opponent will forfeit in this position. If Blissey came in, I blow up, and then whatever the last is getting intimidated by Mence, potentially sacking Suicune, potentially getting a boom with Metagross, and if all of that fails, then Heracross is 1v1ing. So yeah, I don't know what my opponent had, but it could not have been very good for this situation. Next game. Lead Tyranitar, lead Metagross. This is basically Metagross's favorite matchup. Just go for a nice Meteor Mash. And I get a crit on the Zapdos and a Raise, which is, all of that is fantastic. And then my opponent goes for Thunder, and I miss Meteor Mash. And then I go to Magneton. I get hit with the Thunder, and it does 55%. I'll be honest, I was expecting to live better than that. But in this case, I kind of just have to sack the Magneton because nothing else on my team wants to take the Thunder. That's one thing that's tough about blue offense is you don't have an electric immunity because there's no Swampert. I'll go for Body Slam, threatening a KO on Zapdos, threatening a para on anything else. That's a DD Tar. I assumed that based on my opponent not being willing to like trade into the Metagross, that this was a Lumberry DD Tar, and considering I didn't have leftovers, and not Choice Band. And even if it was Choice Band, I don't believe Snorlax dies to a Choice Banded Brick Break. So I just opt to go for the Earthquake. That's a really good chip. and my opponent goes for Rock Slide and misses it. Kind of justice for the Meteor Mashes that I missed, but I digress. My opponent goes to Cradily and goes for a Rock Slide. I go for Body Slam, fishing for a pair on Cradily and not trying to let the Zapdos come back in if the Cradily was trying to lure the Metagross out. To play it safe, I go to Heracross, which should take any of Cradyly's hits well. Zapdos comes in, and it's just going to die to Mega Horn. Note that Cradily, it's got a weird type, the Grass Rock, but it is weak to Bug. If you don't believe me, Tyranitar is weak to Bug, and that's also a Rock type, so just think about that. I hit 3 Mega Horns in a row to kill off the Swampert. I only needed 2 for the Swampert, 1 for its a buddy before. And then I hit another Mega Horn. And then here comes Celebi. And I could opt to go for Mega Horn here again, but I don't. And the Celebi goes for Ancient Power. I was afraid that if it was faster that it might have Psychic, but honestly my Heracross is really slow. It's only just a bit faster than an Adamant Tyranitar, so Celebi should outspeed it regardless. In any case, I go to Snorlax predicting a Psychic, but Ancient Power is really funny. Does not get the boost, but I won't let it. I boom. And I go to Heracross here because I figured that if my opponent had a good switch into Heracross, they would have went to it by now, but then they reveal Nidoking, which honestly would have been really good into the Heracross because it outspeeds and kills with Sludge Bomb. Now I'll go to Suicune, who should live a Sludge Bomb pretty easily, and then clean up the game with 2 Surfs. And there you go. In 18 turns, that is it. Alright, let's pick a little bit of a higher ladder game. My opponent is at 1607. I think I'm still in the 1400s, so ignore that. I missed my Meteor Mash on Metagross, which is really bad. And my opponent gives me an opportunity to kill the Regirock off here by going for T-Wave, but I go for Toxic thinking that my opponent would not want to sack the Regirock. Then I switch Suicune into a Boom, which is really, really bad. It was not worth saving the Metagross sack for that level of damage, but I was hoping that my opponent would just go for Earthquake again, with like a sane person to try to just finish off the Metagross nice and easy. But I digress. I sack Suicune here to the Earthquake to figure out what Salamence it is. Go for Body Slam. Always go for Body Slam on Snorlax, because even if the Metagross is going to switch in, because I'd rather get the Para on Metagross, I decide to stay in an Earthquake, and my opponent gets the Meteor Mash raise. So I have to go to my own Metagross and sack it. And then my opponent gets the Meteor Mash raise again! But that's okay, because I have Magneton, and I presume that I'm faster. I am, and I get the kill. Here comes Salamence. I'll go to my own Salamence to drop their attack stat. It also switches in well to Earthquake. And then I will double to Heracross, predicting them to double. I get the play right, and I miss my Mega Horn. But then I hit the second one. This is a more offensive Suicune, but still not faster than Heracross though, which is really strange. It's probably max HP, max special attack. It could be possible that this is just a 222 speed Suicune and I'm speed creeping it by 1, which would be really nice. I get a nice Rock Slide flinch off my Sleep Talk, which is just enough to wake up and be able to click Mega Horn there. You could say that was hacks, but also I did Sleep Talk a rest in there, or I Sleep Talked a Mega Horn that missed in there. So if I had hit that, I would have killed the Suicune for sure. And my opponent just decides to forfeit there, which I think is a little premature. I feel like Salamence could come in. If it's a DD Vents, then that could be really tough for my team to handle. I guess it was probably a banded Salamence. And maybe even a slower one at that, because my opponent was really not confident that it would beat my Ments. I guess if Ments came in, I could have tried to sack Magneton, Although that's a tough situation because if it's again, if it's a DD Mence, then my Mence can only come in and intimidate. It's going to be slower, and I would have to rely on Rock Slide misses, and then Snorlax somehow to finish off the Mence. I don't know what the two in the back were, but strange. I would have loved to see this game get played out, but alas, my opponent decided that the slot machine was too much. All right, here's another game here. Lead Metagross versus Skarm. I'm going to switch immediately to Magneton and get my Thunderbolt off. Then my opponent goes to Claydol. I decide I'm going to get a Toxic on the Claydol because that's probably as good as anything else that Magneton could do. But this Claydol reveals to be faster than my Magneton, so it's probably a really high speed investment in Claydol. This is why you should be running my Scizor set that I was showing off in the last video, so you can outspeed these Claydol. Granted, you won't be able to hit it with anything, but that's not really the point, alright? In any case, I can go to Heracross here, and I'm threatening a fat Megahorn. So it's a solid 32 to Gengar. That's probably a defensive Gengar. I take a Fire Punch from it to get my Rock Slide off. If I got burned there, I would have killed the Gengar, which was really nice. But instead, the Gengar will just go for another Fire Punch. I'm going to simply Shadow Ball. Generally, I like to Body Slam into the Metagrosses on switch in, but I can't rightly Body Slam when Gengar is in. So I'll go to Metagross to eat the damage and trade back with the Earthquake. He's probably a bulky Metagross based on the rolls. I'm not sure though. I just go for Megahorn and I hit it. Keep in mind at any time in this video, if Heracross just decides it wants to miss all of its moves, then it's a completely useless Pokemon. But it's going to hit more often than it misses, so take that as you will. The Gengar opts to Boom to put my Snorlax into Kui-kun range. I don't know if that's a name of a set or if that's just a fun way to put it. At Megahorn, I don't quite do half, so I'm just going to have to rest up. This is not a bold Suicune, I don't think, but it is pretty high defense investment. But I can Sleep Talk another Megahorn, and because of the Guts boost, I get the kill. Claydol is in. It is faster than my Heracross. I can go for Sleep Talk. If I roll Megahorn, I'll just win the game. But I roll Rest. I decide to sack the Heracross here. Don't think it's going to be able to do much. I go to Suicune, who gets boomed on, and then Regice is the last Pokemon. Oh, man. Alright, so I go for Rest here, hoping that the Regice doesn't have T-Bolt, but obviously it does. And it's really high Spatak investment, which generally Regice are. And I'm just going to have to let the Suicune die here, and as we all know from this video, my last mon is Salamence, so I'm kind of screwed. Yeah, and I just unfortunately lose this game. It was very, very sad. And I but deserved. I put myself in the position to lose it, and I just lost. So, this is why you don't rely on the slot machine, folks. It is going to come back to bite you in the long run. Yeah, but that's it, really. Except, psych, I have one more. I'm going to show the date here, if I can. Maybe I'll have to go to presentation mode. This was done on September 9th, 2024. This is about the time that I was really getting into the competitive scene. This was, I think, my first ever ladder run where I got above 1500. And it was using a pretty similar team. I don't know if it's exactly the same. It might be. It is a blue offense team with the Rest, Sleep Talk, Heracross. So I'm up against I believe a banded Mance who goes for Earthquake and hits my Metagross, and then dodges and then goes to the Fortress and then calls my Magneton switch and then calls my Thunderbolt. So my opponent is outplaying the crap out of me. But I get to go to Snorlax here. Baton Pass. I go for Body Slam. Kind of greedy, honestly. Should have just went for Earthquake. I guess I didn't want Salamence to come in, I guess. Salamence will come in now. Go for Earthquake and don't get anything out of it. But Snorlax will eat the Intimidate as I switch to a Pokemon that is more well equipped to die to Salamence. But I go for Magneton. Assuming this is banded, it's HP flying, it's not going to be able to do much. I go for Toxic on the Jirachi, which really sucks. I get burned. Not that it really matters. I mean, it means that I'm kind of forced to stay in with the Magneton. But my opponent will go for Wish. I'm expecting a Protect, so I'm going to take the opportunity to go to Heracross. Now, I think on this particular team, I had Protect Toxic Magneton. I've since graduated from that level of thinking, and I prefer to use Thunder Wave plus Toxic Magneton rather than with Protect. Protect has its uses, particularly scouting banded Pokemon's moves, but I think Thunder Wave is really good to hit Jirachi in particular. I do manage to get the Trap and Kill on Fortress and a Body Slam Para on Salamence, which is... all of that is really good. I'll go to Heracross here, predicting my opponent to go for Brick Break. But they get parried, so I guess we'll never know what they clicked. Tito Fierro, if you are watching this, you can comment down below what you clicked in that position from a game that was played like 7 months ago. I get a nice Mega Horn crit on the Milotic, which kills it after Sand. I go for Mega Horn on Jirachi, doing about half of its health. Goes for Body Slam, does not get the para. On the Protect, I rest, which is perfect for me. Now, my opponent probably doesn't know that I have Sleep Talk, but I go for Sleep Talk and I roll Mega Horn and get the kill. In comes Jolteon. Goes for Thunderbolt. I go for Sleep Talk and roll Rock Slide, which is enough to kill after the Sand. And then in comes Tyranitar. I wake up on this turn and I Mega Horn, which is enough to kill after the Sand, except Sykes. Tyranitar doesn't die to Sand. That's one of the problems with Heracross is it doesn't quite kill bulky Tyranitar with a Mega Horn. I get crit on my Suicune, really nice. I go to Salamence here. I live the Rock Slide. I get flinched. And then I have to go to Snorlax here, who's at 42 HP. I don't know if I got this. But I do live. And I Earthquake and I kill. If I got flinched there, I think I was... if I was not dead to Sand, I was certainly dead to Earthquake, so... yeah. And this is actually, I think, my highest rated game that I showed today. Back when I was... playing 7 months ago, so you can see how washed up I am. I was a lot more practiced with that particular team because Blue Offense was my favorite team for a good long while. Snorlax was actually my favorite Pokemon to play with for a good long while, but that Slot Machine Heracross set was always so fun because people were so shocked to see a Sleep Talk boosted or Sleep Talk Guts boosted move KO something that it otherwise should not have. And I think that you should give this a try if you like winning inconsistently. Because, yeah, Heracross is very feast or famine. If you just keep missing your moves, or you keep rolling Rest, or you keep rolling Rock Slide when you need the Mega Horn, then it feels like it does nothing. But if you can kill something, get your rest off, and then kill something else, like, that is great. And that is what Blue Offense is kind of predicated on, is Snorlax and Metagross going 2-for-1s. And with Rest Suicune and Rest Heracross, you're kind of trying to get another 2-for-1. So this team can really just trade 4 for 8. And you can only bring 6 Pokemon to a game. So the math is mathing. This is an unbeatable team. Um, in any case, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it wasn't too similar to my other videos so far. I think Heracross definitely has enough key differences that it's different. And I also got to show a funny set with it. So that's quite nice. I will be uploading some more of my draft league videos to this channel. I know that they don't perform that well compared to my other stuff. I mean, granted, it's like what, 10 views versus 100 views. It's not really like crazy difference in the grand scheme of things, but I will keep doing it just because I want to document all the draft league games that we play. If you would like to check them out, that's great. It's Gen 9 draft. If you don't care, then that's also fine too. I hope to see you guys for the next ADV video or the next draft video, if that's your persuasion. See you then.